Welcome to the FOMIS Management Account Setup or module. Before we go to the actual management accounts, I'd just like to say a few words about setting up the building parameters. The first thing we need to set up for balance sheet and income statement is the structure. So in this case, I've set up a very, very simple structure with an asset and equity section. You would select whether it's a balance sheet or income statement item, and then you would add, for instance, assets 1, or, in this case I've set up assets, equity, and liabilities. Okay. For each of these sections, you can set up a subsection. So for equity, I've set up equity, long-term borrowings, and other long-term liabilities. In the case of assets, I've used a subsection. So on the non-current assets, I've got a fixed assets heading as well. Current assets I have, and current liabilities, I've got taxation and other current liabilities. So this would give you your structure of your management balance sheet and income, so management account balance sheet and income statement. The next thing you would do is you would now link your individual accounts in the chart of accounts to these sections which you've set up. Okay, so you would say, okay, this account is a balance sheet or not a balance sheet, so it's either balance sheet or income statement. You would then select the appropriate section, subsection, or subsection. This column over here tells you in what format you want the reports to appear. So you can either report on a sub-account level or a main account level or on a report writer level. I think I've got one down here. Yes, yeah. Okay. So depending on that determines how the information would be summarized. In addition, you would set up headings over here. Just when you click this, it will just underline and bold the item in the reports. And the last thing to do is we need to tell the computer which are operating expenses within your income statement. So all the operating costs we would actually go and click so that the report knows to treat those as operating costs, or the report writer. Okay. You would then also set up your fixed asset categories for your fixed assets register. So we've got motor vehicles, which has got two sections or two items. Harvesting equipment, extraction equipment, etc. Okay, and then the very last item you set up is your activity categories. These are fixed, and what the report writer needs to know is which letter in the project code belongs to each activity. So you would go and select these. These are derived from the project code setup, which is covered in another video. Once we've done all that, we can then go to the management reports and actually run them. And we would then select a period, and we would then build the data for that period. Okay, I've already pre-built the data, so we're not going to worry about that now. But essentially, the computer just runs up and builds all the data for the reports. Once that's happened, you can then run your reports. Okay. So here we can see the balance sheet, which gives you a movement and a total, year-to-date figures. It also gives you an opening balance. There's no prior years on this dummy account, so all the opening balances are zeros. So there you have your balance sheet. Okay. You also have a income statement, which gives you last year's figures, and then it gives you a movement for the period, okay, with a budget and a variance comparison. So you have your actual, your budget, and your variance, as well as a year-to-date actual budget variance, okay? And that's essentially your income statement. Again, it would set this up depending on whether you use the sub or main to show which accounts actually appear, or what sort of summary format is followed. Okay. You also have a trend income statement, so that's a by month for your income statement, which is quite useful, as well as a total column, a year-to-date column. In addition to your balance sheet income statement, you have a budget actual variance tonnage report giving you your sales tons, your tons, and then your revenue for those periods, and then of course it gives you a revenue per ton, and that's also based on a movement for the period as well as a year to date. So this would be for August, and that would be year to date. It does the same thing with operating costs, and this is where in your setup it needs to know those operating costs. It then comes in and calculates that. The one additional thing with costs is it will also do the same exercise for overhead costs. So anything which you haven't clicked or which cannot be identified as belonging to one of these activities, based on the project code that was allocated to the actual expense, it would then lump under overhead costs, and it would then again give you operating costs per ton. And then the last section of the report would actually pro-rata the overhead cost, okay, according to the tonnages of the various activities, and then allocate that cost into these activities so that you've got an overall activity cost or summarized activity cost including overhead costs. Okay. Likewise, with the trend tonnage report, you would have the same principles. You have your sales tons, then your actual revenues, your revenue per ton, exactly the same format, just in a trend format. Okay. You would have a year-to-date stock report, which gives you your year-to-date stocks. Again, tons in field. It breaks it down into harvested tons, extracted tons, what's left in field. Again, what was extracted, those two figures should always be the same, and then dispatched, and then your balance on depot. Okay. Again, this will break it up by farm, so that it works so that you know what's on each farm. A current month stock report, which gives you your stock movements for the month, and what you've done per compartment. You notice that this adds compartments. Okay. And then lastly, a current month stock detail, which gives you a little bit more detail on your farms, and on your compartments as well. Okay. Right. Your diesel report is a summary report on your diesel usage. This ties in quite strongly with Pastel. So what would actually happen is some of the sections don't appear on this report because they're blank, but if you had journals or other allocations directly in Pastel which weren't allocated or did not go through the FOMIS system, there would be an additional section here, and then that would consolidate into a final report giving all the information on your vehicles and diesel usage. Right, you also have your fixed assets register. So this would give you your basic fixed assets register, including all your items with depreciation to date, your book values this year, depreciation this year, impairments this year, etc. Okay. This again now is broken into the categories which you set up into the fixed asset categories there. So that gives you your fixed assets register. And then lastly, we added this report, which is a location report, just to tell you what your machines were, where they were working, at what dates. Okay, so we can see that Harvester 1 year worked on compartment A015 on Forest Farm from the 1st of the 8th to the 8th of the 8th, and then it moved through to compartment 16, and then from there it moved on to another farm entirely, and went to compartment B, and then B2, etc., with all your machines. Okay, your loaders and the whole bit. Okay, so that's your management report package. you can also export this package into Excel, either for further analysis or if you want to present it in Excel. Normally I hide this process, but it's quite fun to watch as well as the system builds the reports. I'll just let it finish. Okay, so there you have a duplication of all those reports, your balance sheet, your income statement, BAV, or income statement trend. All the reports are duplicated here. Maybe one thing I'd like to note that's not on the other reports, which we do include in Excel, is monthly depreciation columns. It's nice with Excel because you've got the space to do it. But on a printable format, you don't have the space, so we exclude these columns. This is not included in the normal printable report. Okay, so that's a pretty comprehensive management package. These are obviously all printable. So you can go into print preview and you can either print those to a printer or you can export them to PDF as well. So I could just save that as a PDF. Let's make that a little bit smaller. So yeah, you can see the PDF report for your balance sheet in a PDF format. Okay, I think that pretty much covers the management reports module, and brings us to the end of this particular video.